I grew up in Terenure as a child. I travelled a little bit around the world and came back to live in Terenure. I live here now with my 4 children and my husband. I was living in London with my husband. We just got married. Planned to move back to Ireland. I was 6 months pregnant. We travelled home by ferry and I noticed I had a cramp in my leg on the way back. I hadn't met my obstetrician then, so my first meeting with him, I told him I felt my leg was very swollen, it was very sore. He referred me straight to Holles Street with a suspected blood clot. I was really shocked because I wasn't expecting it, but I was brought straight to a bed and I was hooked up to different IVs, anticoagulants. I didn't know much about blood clots, and I suppose it was only until they did the scan that I realised how serious it was. I had a very large clot in my groin at that stage. I was told that I would have to remain in Holles Street until the blood clot was dissolved, which actually took maybe about 6 weeks in total to stay there. So I was on IV anticoagulants for that time, and then I was offered the choice of staying there or learning how to inject heparin into my belly. So I quickly learned how to inject. It's subcutaneous, so it's just under the skin. So I had to do that 3 times a day. So obviously the fear was initially when I was learning to inject, are you going to harm the baby? So that was a real worry. And drawing up the injections, you know, like it's all very foreign when you've never done anything like that before. I stayed on the anticoagulants. Andrew arrived, thank God. The only thing was I wasn't allowed an epidural. So it was a natural childbirth, which obviously first time mom and everything, it was pretty awful, but it was great when he was born, and yeah, really happy time. Katie, Stuart and Patrick, and for the 3 of them I did, you know, exactly as I was instructed, do the mini heparin, the 3 injections a day, and for the 6 weeks after the pregnancies, and everything went great. In 2017 it was my son's Debs, and I was obviously busy at work running around, but I felt really tired, I felt really lethargic, and I just couldn't figure what was wrong. I woke up one morning and I had really bad pain in my left leg, and I thought it was such a strong pain. I felt like a vein was going to burst. I thought perhaps it was a varicose vein. I've never had varicose veins before, but the vein was kind of bulging, so I thought, well, perhaps that's, you know, that could be it. And I went to my GP, it was a Saturday, and he told me straight to go to Tala Hospital. So I was admitted into Tala Hospital into accident and emergency, and I told them that I did have a history of clotting. So I was sent home and my leg started to swell more and more, and I knew that things weren't right. So the following day we went back up to A&E. I was admitted into hospital. I had an ultrasound scan and they said yes, I did have a clot, but you know, it could be treated. I was brought up onto the ward where I was administered a heparin again, the heparin that I had taken previously before, so that was an injection, and I was given morphine for the pain because I was in so much pain I actually couldn't walk. The following day I was discharged from hospital and I was told to continue taking the heparin. So I was really at a loss because I was in so much pain, and then 2 days later I woke up and I was passing out, and my leg again, it was just, the pain was excruciating. I actually couldn't even speak. So I was brought to Vincent's Hospital and I was brought straight into the A&E department there. They discovered that I actually had a blood clot that extended from my knee to my pelvis, and it was extremely dangerous. So I was given morphine and then referred to a vascular specialist and a haematologist. I was then diagnosed with factor V Leiden and a May-Turner syndrome. So I had never heard of May-Turner syndrome, but May-Turner syndrome is related to blood clotting, and it's when the iliac vein is compressed. This is what had happened. So I was advised that in order to dissolve the clot, because it was so big, I would need a procedure called thrombolysis, which you have a catheter inserted in the back of your leg, and then they administer it's like bringing the blood almost to water. It's done in ICU, so the blood is anticoagulated, so it'll dissolve all clots in the body. The following day I had a stent placed into my iliac vein. It was dangerous and it was life-threatening, and I was so scared. I was so scared when I was in the intensive care unit too, because, you know, as I said, one day you're fine and the next, you know, you're there. So we went to this comedy gig in the O2, and unfortunately the seating is really tight there, so everybody was sat down, and you know, you have to sit very straight for the whole time I was there. It didn't even cross my mind that it could be an issue, and I was on my blood thinners. We had been sitting all night, And I woke up maybe 3 or 4 o'clock that morning with a pain at the back of my other leg. It was my right leg this time. I knew straight away with the pain in the calf of my leg that this could be a blood clot. So we went back to the hospital, and they did a test called my D-dimer. A D-dimer will tell you whether your blood was clotting or not, and my D-dimer said it was fine, that I wasn't clotting, and they said I was good to go home. But we insisted, because of my history, that I would get a scan. So they said come in the following day for an ultrasound scan. So I left work and I ran up to the hospital to get my ultrasound scan, and they did the scan, and next thing I was brought from the scanning room to a hospital bed, and I said, why are we here? And they said, oh, have you not been told you have a blood clot? So I was like, I couldn't believe it. So yeah, so there I had another clot. So I was admitted into hospital again, and the clot was dissolved, and they changed my medication. So I'm now on a medication called Eliquis. It was very traumatic, and obviously my kids were extremely worried and concerned when I was sick. And you know, my daughter, it was her 21st birthday when I was in hospital, and as I said, it was my son's Deb. So there was a lot going on, you know. And of course, when you're the mum of a family, there's a whole ripple effect, because you're the middle of the family. I had nowhere to turn to, and I was really kind of panicked, because I wanted to get as much information as I could. And I discovered actually there was no support groups here in Ireland at the time. So I ended up kind of sending off to America. There was some good kind of information and brochures and support groups and that kind of thing, and on social media there was. But then I discovered Thrombosis Ireland, and because they're based in Terenure, and I met Anne-Marie, who is in charge of Thrombosis Ireland there, and that's how our paths crossed. She's been fantastic in terms of support, and you know, leading me towards you know, the various events that have happened now at the moment recently.
Spot the signs, save a life.